Welcome.
Microphone on again.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, you guys want to switch this over there?
Oh,
Yeah, then they're on.
okay. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Silver Falls School Board to order and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome all our guests. Thanks for coming tonight. We have Irv Stadley is working in North Dakota, so he's with us on Skype. Can you hear us, Irv?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Please join me for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a few items on our consent agenda tonight. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move for approval.
Second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Thank you. Okay, right now I'd like to open our budget hearing. This is a regular school board meeting, but also our final budget hearing in consideration of the 2013-14 school year budget.
Tim, excuse me,
Yeah.
if you would just take a second with the consent agenda and introduce our new business
Oh,
manager.
thank you very much,
that's
Andy.
fine.
I totally
Fine.
forgot.
You bet.
I have that circled too. Sorry about that, everybody. But with on the consent agenda, one of the things we approved was the employment of Scott Pilar as our new school district business manager. Scott, would you like to stand? Turn around so they can see your face. And we're excited to have Scott here. He comes from the Sisters area, and we're excited to have him. I think he's going to do a great job. So thank you for coming tonight, Scott. Sorry I slipped up there. Okay, back to the budget hearing. I'd like to open the budget hearing tonight, and we're going to have an audience with visitors for budget-related items only. Is there anybody who would like to address the board on budget-related items? Nobody? There'll be a chance later on if you have things you want to bring up. So, okay. Student reps, William, and you have someone new tonight.
Yeah, this is Acacia and Acacia Westgate. Her and Macy Holland were elected as the new school board representatives. And yeah, well, this is. So Acacia will be representing the clubs next year, and
Great.
Macy will be representing the sports.
Good, okay.
So yeah, just wanted to introduce her and get her acquainted with you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you next year.
Acacia Westgate, what was your last name? Okay. Sophomore, junior?
I'm going to be a junior.
Going to be a junior? Good deal. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Nice to have you here, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you. And what was the other girl's name, William?
Macy.
Macy next year. Okay. That's it? That's all you have? Any reports tonight?
Do you have like a report or anything?
End of the year, we weren't really expecting much. So, last day tomorrow.
Surprised to see you come in.
Yeah, I was too. How'd finals go today?
They went good.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Good.
I don't know. As far as the report, we had our Spirit Week. When was it? Like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
2 weeks ago, which was kind of an ASB event, and it was basically all the classes competed in like different events, like charity races and stuff. And the juniors won that. And then I think we also had like Auto Shop had a car show.
Yeah, we had a car show on this Saturday after we had the Spirit Games, and it went really well. We had like 64 cars there, and we made
Wow.
$600, I think.
Oh, good, good. Good.
Yeah. So, and then football, we had spring practice the past 2 weeks, which is good. Football this summer, of course, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Good,
All right.
good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I heard good things about the Spirit Games and stuff, so
okay, good.
good job on that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great summer.
Yeah, have a good summer. Nice to meet you, Acacia. Okay, I'd like to open it up for another audience with visitors for anything else anybody would like to discuss. Does anybody have anything they want to bring in front of the board tonight? Yeah.
We don't have to push the button or anything.
Good to see you
We're on,
guys.
right?
No, you're on.
Okay, all right.
Just please sign in and introduce yourselves. We know who you are, but
So I'm Phil Appleton. I was a chair for the board, or for the bond measure that was put forward and voted down, and this last the 21st of May. And I think, we were asked to come and kind of talk about our experience, kind of let you guys know, at least from my personal opinion, expectations, where we need to go forward from here. Obviously, the bond was soundly defeated. I mean, 58% voted no, 42% voted yes. It's my opinion that as a, community or as a group, we may have presented a bond that was definitely unsupportable by the voting population. And so however we came about the information that we could submit a bond for $36.9 million and found that the population was going to support this. I'm not sure, I wasn't involved in the due diligence and how we found out that we could actually, the community was going to support this, but we obviously can tell that they were not in favor. I think what's important going forward is we understand that the schools need to get maintained, repaired, be seismically upgraded. What I would propose or request is that we get representatives from both sides, parties, to sit down with the board in a working session and walk through all the courses of action that were looked at previously and ensure that we just go back through that due diligence and find a amicable solution that the voters are willing to support, and that is actually going to provide the students with a safe place to go to school. I can't tell you whether it's Eugene Field. I can't tell you whether it's going to, whether it's, refitting Slater Street, Eugene Field, whatever. We got to go back to the drawing board, and we don't need to get the details again rebuilt. But what we do need to do is look at all the courses of action, lay them out, and see somewhere. May not be the cheapest solution. Obviously, we've got to know on the most expensive solution. So, we've got to find a way forward, and so that we can take care of the students and ensure that they got a safe place to go to school. Stacy?
Okay, so I'm Stacy Postgate, and I was vice chair, and I work with Phil. And so one thing that, there are a lot of things that I'd like to say, but I do want to be careful about some of the things that I say. So a couple of things I'd like you to know is one thing. So Phil and I were chair and vice chair of the Political Action Committee. I think that you couldn't meet two people that might be further apart on their political beliefs. Well,
That's true, yeah.
So we've gotten along great, and we both share this huge interest in helping our schools. And so I think it says a lot that the two of us, and then the people that were on this very, very small committee, unfortunately, could get together to push this on. So you need to know this isn't a Republican versus Democrat versus Libertarian, whatever you are issue. It's not about that. So then the next question is, well, what is it about? And I want you to know what I learned. I feel pretty safe in saying that regardless of whether the design of that school was the best bang for your buck, this community is not going to agree to a $27 million school without more information. And that was not something that we were able to get out there. We could, and we could try and impart that to people. But I moved here in 2006, I think you did too. We had a really small committee of people who, in terms of Silverton land, are babies as residents. So we may not have been necessarily the best people to be the leaders of this group because we don't have street cred. And so we needed help, honestly. We needed help from the board. I mean, you guys have been,
Thanks.
you've been voted into your positions or appointed into your positions because the people in your districts believe in you and they trust in you and they know your names. They don't know ours. They might now, but we needed help from you, and we needed help from the schools. We needed help from the teachers, and we didn't have it. There were maybe 5 of us working on this. And I don't want to come in here to admonish anybody, but what I want to tell you is that what I just wanted to impart to you is how very, very important this entire town and the people and the district, the people who believed in this, that they were to this process. And for whatever reason or not, there were too few of us that tried to push this. So the next thing I wonder about is, well, maybe it has to do with the amount of of information that was out there. And the one thing that I consistently countered was people who had information that, based on my research, I disagreed with. But I can tell them that I disagreed with them, and the response I get back is, well, you weren't here 40 years ago when this happened. You weren't.
High school, yeah.
High school.
Yeah.
And I can't counter that. But I don't know if any of you know this, and I don't mean to throw this out there, but I do work for a state agency. And as a state agency, we're considered, the one that I work for is Department of Justice, and we're considered the most, believe it or not, the most transparent agency in the state of Oregon. And the reason for that is we do, and for a bunch of lawyers to be called transparent is and state lawyers at that, I mean, it's pretty high bar. We do everything that we can to get information out. We truly do. And it's very important because when you don't put information out there, even if it's information that you think that might be viewed in a light that's not so favorable to you, people are going to run with the information that they have and fly with it, and it's not necessarily what you want out there. And I'm on the planning commission also, and we talk a lot about, for Silverton, we talk a lot about being transparent and sharing, getting the community involved in what it is that they want to do, and getting feedback from them. So I bring all this to you because I know that you have been working on this as a district, and that you have made an attempt to involve people from the community. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. So again, this $27 million school, it may be the best bang for the buck. It truly will. But you got to show that to people. You need to make the effort to show it to them, and they will support you. And you got to encourage them to do the same. We need more people than just Phil and I working on it.
I make a crappy cheerleader, so.
You were a great cheerleader. So the next thing I do want to put out there, because this is very important to me, and the reason why I got on this, is I have a little girl that's about to turn 5, and I live right up the street. And so she's supposed to go to Eugene Field, and I will tell you that's not going to happen. I'm going to put her in kindergarten in Salem. I don't even like Salem that much. I have to drive there all the time. It's certainly not a place that I want to educate my child. I want her to go to school here. And I want her to go to school in a place that I don't have to get an inter-district transfer. So I can't ask you enough. If there is, to please, for the time being, got to figure out a way to get these kids out of Eugene Field. The other school at St. Agnes, we know that, but that school is about one really bad storm away from us being national news. So let's not go there. Let's figure something out with whatever you can. That the community will get behind you. So thank you for putting the bond on. I appreciate that. I think that you probably need to get some opposition, but maybe we could just all learn some things from this and get these kids out of Eugene Field and get information out there. So I think that's it.
First off, thank you both for all you did. I know you guys worked extremely hard, and I talked to Phil a couple of times during the process, and I know you guys worked extremely hard. So thank you for all you did. And we appreciate that, and we appreciate the effort you guys put forth. So, but I had just a couple questions. What would you suggest to do to get the information out there better? I mean, because we had community meetings with all the different organizations and Andy went to all the schools, and I mean, articles in the paper, website. We really didn't know what else to do. So do you have other ideas as to what? I mean, and we don't even know where we're going to land on this now.
We had open house for community and only probably 5 people showed up.
Yeah.
And that was just within a couple of months of your putting the bond on. I think you're talking about those 2 meetings, because I went to the first one. I think the involvement needed to happen earlier than that. And I confess I wasn't here either, so I can only look at documents that show what happened in the past. So in terms of the committee that actually walked through the designs and got it presented to them, and your solicitation of the vendors and the architects who actually drew the school, you needed to actually, believe it or not, go back 3 or 4 years and start involving the community there.
Yeah, this is a time effort, and it actually goes through the decision-making process is something that, or winning over the community is going to be something that is going to take probably a good year, maybe 2. And, advertising or letting folks know, people are smart. They're going to be able to take a look at. I think what may have happened was a decision was made on the course of action, and it was really just, then it was selling the decision to the population. And what we may end up needing to do is take a look at the different courses of action, the pricing options as to what it will do, and that actually goes out first, 6-8 months in advance or whatever, and then the community starts, you know, looking at the financial decision as to, you know, where and what they can afford. I don't know. There's a reason I'm not in politics, you know, and getting people motivated, you know. I know. Believe me, there's a reason I'm not involved in politics. So, but anyways, I can't tell you I don't know what the answer is. You know, maybe what has to happen is it's got to suck. Maybe kids getting put in portables, you know, in an old campus somewhere, and you know what? And parents go, wow, this is, I hate this. I don't like this, is the answer. Then people get involved, interested, and care, you know, because frankly, people are just disconnected from it. And if you can stay disconnected, that's somebody else's problem. Somebody else can vote. You know, a non-vote is a no vote. You know, and it's just, I don't know.
I think maybe if some of you guys had gone, I think one or two of you went like Andy to some of the presentations at the schools, that might have led something. So there's a possibility. It's probably a sit down and have a little bit of a think tank, so I use that term, but just to think about what are the things that you can do and what, we live in a place where there are about 1 million public events. I've never seen anything like it, that you can maybe go and talk to people, but really listen to what everybody's saying, not just a small select group of people.
And it's very critical that when we ask the population, we ensure that we present questions or we present information in a way to not validate a decision we've already made, you know, in a small group. And that's that transparency that Stacy talked about. And I'm not saying it happened. I don't know. I wasn't involved in the process back far enough. I just know that, you know, in what I do in my job, that staff folks can and tailor information to the boss because they've already made a pre-decision on what the right answer is, and the voters are our bosses, and so all I'm saying is that we need to make sure that we pose questions or we get information in a manner that is not going to validate a decision that we may have already made as the best course of action. And let the voters kind of, again, I don't know how or what, I wasn't involved in that process, you guys know, and if my comments are invalid, ignore them. I mean, then obviously I'm not familiar with enough of the situation or process that happened, so, okay?
I do want to just throw out there, I don't want to sell short the number of people that very strongly believed in this. So much so, I think there was a contingent of people who actually didn't get involved because they didn't think for a second that it wouldn't pass.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
And that's that people just sitting on the sideline who's, oh, others will take care of it, so, okay?
Yeah. Other questions for Stacy and Phil? Okay, once again, thank you guys very much for all you did.
very much.
It's really appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Would anyone else like to address the board tonight? Okay, we'll move along to discussion items. Our first one, post-bond discussion and review. Andy sent a kind of a post-bond review and draft action plan for us to consider as a board. Something I kind of want to discuss tonight is at least the first part of it. Obtain and review public input. Why did the bond measure fail? Which elements of the bond election had general public support? Before our next work session, there's some, you know, we have data collection. Right now on the website, there's a survey for anybody who wants to take it in regards to why the bond failed. And Andy, jump in here anytime if you feel like you
Yeah,
should.
and that survey actually was through yesterday.
Oh,
so
it was,
up there
okay.
for 9 or 10 days.
Okay.
That's what it was advertised in the papers.
Okay, I knew it was coming up, I wasn't sure when. So we have the county election results that we got tonight. But as far as community conversations, I know Andy and some of the administrators have been talking to people as to, people who they know voted, who they know voted no on the bond, why it failed. And I think that's one thing that would be important for us as board members also in the next couple of weeks, to try to talk to people who we know were negative on this, and then come to our next work session on the 24th with maybe some information as to what, why people voted no. I think that's one thing that's important as we move ahead, to figure out why there were so many no votes for it.
I'll leave my notes at home, so I'm glad we're gonna wait a couple weeks. I was trying to reconstruct them here.
Oh, I see.
Do we have any precinct data yet? Which precincts and how they voted?
We got the election results this morning, Tom, and the only precinct data we receive is the number. So I have to contact Marion County Elections and cross-reference that with geographic areas, so at least we know proximal areas. They're not divided up by zip code. I mean, there may be some that are divided by zip code, but I think for the most part they're cross-section. But I do plan to have that ready for your meeting on the 24th, so we know which areas voted which direction.
Good, great.
Okay, good. That'd be helpful to know. Other discussion on the first part of this? Any other ideas on how to obtain input and review this stuff?
Excuse me, Tim, but we have received nearly 100 responses to the survey. And actually, I received a brief summary today, not with any of the content, but with the demographic information. A little over 90 people who contributed thoughts, and this is with Thought Stream. So it's a little different approach to survey, but it allows for some follow-up questioning if the board deems it's appropriate and necessary to do so. So you can drill down a little bit deeper versus just a simple, let's say, A through F on each question, anonymous survey. But of the 90 plus people, 655 thoughts were submitted and related to the first question, which is, why do you think the bond failed? There were over 260 thoughts specific to that. So the 90 plus people contributed quite a bit of information to this. I've also received some individual communication. I've also obtained a couple of emails, and so again, I'll compile all of that and get that to you folks. But Tim, I think your message about the board members reaching out individually to members of the community, I think is pivotal. If I can suggest some advice, and that is whatever that looks like, from a phone call, email, you see them at the restaurant, see them at church, wherever standpoint, I think that's really very important at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important to know what people are thinking and why the ones who voted no, and as we move forward, and also what's important to them. We have at the bottom of this sheet that Andy had in our packet, that we have the different components of the bond and what are the most important things on those to us and to the community, so we kind of know where to move forward. Other things on this? Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay.
I'm sorry, Tim. I just want to be certain that Irv wasn't trying to say something. I know you have the volume turned down a little bit, Wally.
Irv, you there?
No, I'm just listening.
Oh,
okay.
All right, sorry,
Okay.
I heard something.
Thank you.
Okay, make sure my notes. Okay, moving on. Our summer extended work session, August 21st. Is that a date that's going to work for everybody? A Wednesday?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay, I know David had suggested at one time, right now it's scheduled from 4 to 8. I know David had suggested possibly an idea of making it longer. Are there thoughts about that? I guess it depends how much we want to discuss.
Yeah, it depends on the agenda and what kind of preparation we have ahead of time.
I'd rather see a second meeting rather than just one long extended meeting, if we were going to do that too. Just because after 4 hours, you're kind of brain dead.
True.
This is true.
Yeah.
Very true.
But more than just 4 hours. More than not just one 4-hour meeting, but more time, but not all at once.
Okay.
I think we need to put more time into it. I think we need to really work on some district vision and things.
Yeah, I would
think
agree.
that was a component of the election. A little bit of, they just didn't know where their money was going. They just didn't have upset about various things in the district, and they just didn't want to support the district. A bit of a referendum on the district, if I can be kind of bold there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we need to spend some time.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to figure out all this in one 4-hour session.
Yeah.
So with long-range facility planning and then some of the
Yeah,
other
we
issues
got
that we've
lots.
talked about, it's going to be a month-long, longer than a month. It's going to be a many-month process. That's what I'm envisioning anyway.
Yes.
Possibly kind of one of our goals
Yeah.
as a board. for
Yeah,
next
so
year.
let's put some time into it.
Okay. So right now, leave it from 4 to 8. Does that work for everybody? And go from there? Okay. Okay, if we get down the line and feel like we are going to have a more packed agenda and want to extend the time, we could extend it for an hour or something.
Yeah, if we want to have a second meeting too, that might help. Our first meeting will help establish the agenda for the second one.
This is true.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'll include this as an agenda item at your work session this month. You have about a half a dozen items that either you've been suggested or that you have suggested yourself for consideration. I think those need to be whittled down at the next meeting, and
Okay.
And I agree that could be you could then determine whether a second meeting or whether you wanted to extend this one. I do want to chime in just very quickly to say that there are multiple options, and actually David asked that multiple options be considered for some facilitation either at this meeting and or through your visioning process for next year. And I do have some information from Oregon School Boards Association, but also have access to at least one retired superintendent in the state who evidently provides these kind of services from the Beaverton School District and may be able to provide some real support for the district as we work through that process. And the third is a pilot program being provided by the Oregon Education Investment Board to allow, I believe, 2 school districts in the state of Oregon a grant to help them work through a visioning and strategic planning process during the 2013-14 school year. So similar to the Lighthouse Project, I believe, but I don't know enough detail about it yet. You remember the Lighthouse Project discussion you had last summer? So you do have multiple options, and I'll get you more information at your next meeting and beyond.
Okay, that'd be good. Thanks, Andy. And this extended work session in August would be instead of our regularly scheduled work session, which would have come the next Monday, I guess. So if we decide we want to, we could have a longer work session in September also if we wanted to dedicate a little more time to some of these topics. Okay. Other items? Any other discussion items tonight? Okay, administrator and staff reports. Andy.
I have a couple of items to discuss with you. First of all, I want to share some information with you, and actually it's not a surprise to the board because I've shared this with you already, that I did provide some misinformation to the board at the last work session specific to use of Skype. And I think, as we all know, Irv is here tonight via Skype, and this is still relatively new. I believe this is the 3rd time we've used Skype in this school district. But there was some information that I misinterpreted specific to a person on Skype being able to vote. And based upon additional research that I've done, is that a member can vote with use of electronic technology as long as 3 elements are in place. One of them is that that person can be heard by each of you to participate in communication. Second is that, and can hear the public. And second to that is that the person has all current information that you have. So tonight we did have a revised agenda, and Denise made it a point to get Irv the revised agenda in hand electronically prior to him being able to be here. So that was misinformation on my part, an error on my part, and I apologize to the board and the public for that. But as we move ahead with use of Skype, clearly it's going to be a future tool for us to use. It's real important that we do this accurately and effectively, and that's my plan for sure. So,
Andy, was that a recent change? 'Cause I specifically remember board training maybe 2-3 years ago where we were told that we could not use electronic means for a meeting. We didn't talk about Skype at the time, but it was like a phone conference.
phone conference, right.
Or email.
Yeah, I don't know that answer, Wally, but in my conversation with legal counsel at OSBA, it was clear that either Skype or telephone technology can be used as long as those elements are in place. So whether that was just a few years ago or...
I think it's a good change, by the way, but
right,
it is a change.
Yeah, it is. So Irv, I don't know if we even asked Irv if he voted on the consent agenda tonight, but we didn't double check that. He definitely has a right to vote as a participating member with all those elements in place. So, thank you for
Did you vote on the consent agenda, Irv?
That's a big dent work.
Got a yes.
No, go ahead and write it, Denise. That's a big thing for you. Second to that is each of you today received electronically a copy of my progress and reflection summary specific to each of my professional goals for this year. You also received a template copy of the scoring guide that's used for superintendent evaluation. As you've done in the past, you spend your June work session or executive session during your June work session discussing my evaluation and seeking some additional input, and then between that work session and your July meeting is when my evaluation is crafted and shared with the public at that time. So I'm just providing that to you as a reminder, and Tim, I know will facilitate that process from here now that you've received the information from me. So I'll address any questions if you have any, otherwise I think it's a very thorough process.
Yeah, we'll be doing the evaluation in our work session on the 24th. Okay. And then I'll summarize it for the next regular meeting in July. Okay. Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Andy? Okay, Jan, financial report. And before you get started, I want to recognize Jan. This is her last meeting with us. She's semi-retiring at the end of this month, and I'd like to thank Jan for all her many years of service and many years of board reports that she's given. Let's give Jan a hand. Thanks, Jan. Jan will still be around half-time, but she's not going to come to our meetings anymore. So.
Maybe, no.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you to you also, the board and the administration, for all the support over the years and the understanding, and this is a really good school district to work in. I must say that.
Thank you, Jan.
Try not to get too emotional. If you don't have any questions for me on the financial report, you received it in the mail. That's the last time you're going to hear that. Scott may expound a little more on the financial report, I don't know. But we're in pretty good financial condition, all things considered, and I'm glad to be leaving the district that way. We've had our ups and downs, but we've weathered the storm, and thank you all.
Any questions for Jan? Okay, and once again, Jan, thank you for your expertise and all the help you've given us understanding all this stuff through the years. It's been very, very helpful, and
You're certainly
thank you very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Gary Marshall, technology report. Is Gary here? Yep, it's in the back.
I was expecting to be the last. So my 10 pages are not all filled up yet. What would you like to know? You want an update of what's going on in Shore
that'd be
Falls
good.
School District?
Yeah.
Well, we have 1,500 computers, desktop computers in the district, which has gone down. Because now we have almost 800 laptops. So the laptops are coming. And we've got 138 tablets. The tablets are coming. So you probably get my gist of why I say that. We in the technology department are very sad that the bond measure did not pass. Because the PC is dying. I don't know if you heard the reports. Best Buy, Dell, other companies, they're just not making the money with computers like they used to. So they're looking at mobile devices. That's where things are all going. Windows 8.1 is supposed to be a big change to address a lot of these issues. So I just want to put that out there in the whole district that that's really a concern, a big concern. So when we redo this bond measure, I'm just hoping that infrastructure is really high on the list. Brett was just telling me today, Brett Milliken, which is the network administrator, he said that over Christmas, we went from 300 wireless devices on our network to 1,000.
Wow.
And then over spring break, I think he said we went from 1,000 to 1,350. Wow. So kids are just, they're getting these devices for Christmas. These iPads, these mini pads, these phones. I mean, phones are a great tool, but they're really not going to be able to be used if we have this choke. This great Woodburn. You ever go to Woodburn? That's a good example. They got this great big, mall over there, but their infrastructure is terrible. The traffic is a mess. So I'm just saying I wanted to put that out front, that's my biggest concern. Thankfully, Andy here has procured us going from 50 megabits line is our internet connection, 50 megabits to 100 megabits. We're going to see that next year, is that correct? So for those that don't understand all this stuff, we get our connection, we get our 50 megabit pipeline to Willamette ESD. And then Willamette ESD farms it out through a company up in Portland. And so right now, on almost a daily basis, we're seeing our hit on the ceiling. Our 50 megabits is being used. I have 50 megabits now on my phone. LTE just came out for AT&T, so 50 megabits for a whole district, it's pretty sad. I'm getting lots of people from the high school, other places that just say the teachers cannot show anything on YouTube to a class a lot of times because it stalls. Mm-hmm. They had a whole assembly at the high school where they were showing. Why they didn't download it to show it, I don't know. But they showed the whole thing and it just stalled, kept stalling. So they ended up turning it off. But luckily with 100 megabits, hopefully that'll get us by for a while. Just so everybody knows, it's all coming. Mobile is coming. Mobile is here. So that's if anything I get across tonight, that's the message. As far as the whole district is concerned, we have a lot of needs, but we've been doing pretty good with what we've had. One of the reasons I think we've done so well is, again, I'm just going to say because of the student population that we have supporting the district. We now have, I think we have 40 students in our desktop support program. That's the most we've ever had. We're mining. The kids are mining now. They're called miners. They mine, all the junk that other districts give us, and they mine it. They get the gold out. They get the aluminum out. And you ought to see them. I would encourage the board to come by and watch that. They love it. They love getting their hands on that stuff. So they're learning hard drives and all that stuff. And so Daniel has made over $12,000 this year from mining. And so he uses that money to purchase a technician 20 hours a week. So, even though there's no money, we try to make it work. That's what it's all about. In the multimedia part, we've really greatly increased in the district. We now have, in my program, I have 23, and in the multimedia program at the high school, I think they have approximately 50. So now there's 70-some students in the multimedia program. And something very great happened this year. I was able to hire, because of the money that we make from selling DVDs, which is increasing because we're trying to be more creative, I was able to hire Allison Newton to the technology department. She's hiding over there. She didn't want to see. She knew I was probably going to say this. But now next year, because of the money we made from DVDs, I'm going to increase her to 2 days a week. So, and she's amazing. She'll go out to the city business meetings, and she'll go to the senior, what do you call that place over there? The senior center? Yeah, senior citizen. See, I'm getting to become a senior. She goes there and she makes she makes allegiances with them. Mm-hmm. We now have a lady that's we're filming her cooking. She does cooking, and we go in her home and we have students filming it, just like they do in the pros, and then she pays us for that. And we put it on her website. We have a student that's doing her website for her. We're almost at 250 productions this year. And I'd say half of those are paid productions. I mean, these little kindergartens, you know, the cutest kids in the world. You know, you have 30, 40 of them or whatever, and parents want to buy a DVD, right? So anyway, so that's increasing, and I think that's good for all of our student population, because it's all about getting hands-on experience with technology. And what better way to do it than through things like that, and through a multitude of other things. I have a lot of stuff, but I'm just going to kind of let it open. Do you have any questions that you have about technology? And
Yeah, you mentioned the desktops going away. And
yes,
we have a lot of very old equipment. Are you starting to flush that out of the system then and replacing it with newer stuff? Or?
yes, yeah.
Good.
One of the things that happens is when you go to other districts, and you'd be surprised how many districts now are giving us their old stuff. They give it to us thinking we're going to recycle it, which we do most of it. But there's a number of it that's better than what we have. So Daniel just takes that and he just, you know, and it's not like, okay, here's 10 good ones, we take the bad ones away, because we're not interested in supporting the old dogs. And so the screens, we get flat screens, we'll take those out, put those in. So we get rid of those dinosaur CRTs. So yeah, some of them are pretty old, you know.
And Annie, I've talked a little bit too about some synergy of equipment. You had some ideas working with Dell. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we. I went to Canby and I did a tour of their whole district, and person in charge of there, he made a very interesting point. The superintendent doesn't look at technology as just an item. He looks at it the same as you look at electricity or water. Technology is that important. So right up the front, certain items are taken out of the budget before they're given to the schools, because it's like water. It just has to be done. So they have $150,000 that they set aside for a leasing program where they lease, they lease iPads and things, Apple, but they lease it, and every 3 years, for a small amount of money, they buy it. And then they release, and it goes to the staff. And I thought, you know, that makes sense. If a teacher has a good laptop, and knows they're going to have a good laptop, every 3 years, you take that goes into the student population, mobile carts or etc., and $150,000 broken up over lease over 3 years is quite manageable. If you break it down, it's not that much. Well, some schools have decided they want to go ahead and proceed with that. 3 schools in the district, they want to go ahead and get some staff some laptops and some students some laptops, and we're going to try the leasing program, and we're going to see how well it works. So basically they warranty it for 3 years, and then so we don't have to pay anything in those 3 years other than just the whatever money we pay for lease. Many school districts are going this way. It's just not a new idea. It's actually quite large. I talked with a gentleman today, and he said more and more school districts are coming to him and say, we want to lease, we want to lease. It makes sense.
Absolutely.
Gary, do they have lease options I know they have them for laptops, do they have for tablets too?
Oh, yes.
iPads and things like that? Or?
I think any way they can get your money, they will.
I would imagine,
So
yeah.
it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
There's companies that want to make some money. And right now in the market, it's really pretty competitive. So.
Is it mostly iPads that are used across our district? You said there's like 138.
Of the 138 tablets, only I think, I don't know, 20 or something like that are non-iPads. They're almost all iPads.
I see, okay.
Some are Kindle Fires and some are Galaxy, which are fine. They seem to work fine. But iPads seem to be the flavor. Most people like it. They work well with Apple TV. If you're familiar with that, that's a great teaching tool if you only have one iPad in your class.
Yeah, I've heard that from teachers. So. Other questions for Gary?
Yeah, you mentioned we went from 50 meg up to 100 meg.
Yes.
How soon until you have to double it to 200?
I don't know. That's a good question. Canby, that has like 3,500 wireless devices. They have a 2 gigabyte connection.
Okay.
But I asked him directly, how much do you actually use on a daily basis? And he said probably 150 megabits. So I don't know. It just, most of the bandwidth is chewed up by Google. So if you were to break it down, 33% is Google Apps, YouTube, anything searchable, is done usually by Google. So that's kind of where the meat of the matter. In fact, one of the engineers took that 33% and he delved into it and found out what is it? Is it like games? Is it like YouTube videos, just where they're watching things? Most of it was education. Teachers are using it. It's a great tool. So now with a 100 megabit increase, I think teachers are going to be thrilled. So I think it's a good move. But you're right, maybe a couple of years that'll be nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say.
Will that alleviate some of this, the YouTube videos you mentioned that just don't play, that stall? Is that kind of thing alleviate
Well,
that?
see-
Or is that some of the factor?
That's the problem is you have, in a room like this, if everybody was to get on it would cause a crunch.
Right.
The infrastructure in most of the schools cannot even support it. They don't even have wireless. They don't even have wireless to support a few.
Right.
So it is a problem. So if the bond doesn't measure, then we're going to have to be creative and think, how can we? Because all testing is going to be coming wireless. So it's just, I think it's like electricity. I think we just have to assume it's here to stay.
Is the Canby system unique, or do you see that other districts as well?
I think from what I've seen, Canby is kind of a front runner.
Okay.
I think the gentleman that helps run that has actually been on like Good Morning America or something, because he's quite aggressive with Apple products. Little tiny iPods, iTouches and stuff. So,
In your opinion, how are we going to handle like the testing piece a couple years down the road when we have all this, the new state tests coming in and stuff? Are we just going to, I need to do something like that, take some money off the top of the district before we send it out to the schools and do some improvements that way? Or, what's your best guess on something like that?
out of the bandwidth from the studies that they've seen is testing doesn't really take a huge amount of bandwidth. They're designing the test so it takes less and less bandwidth. The problem that we have to do is get the infrastructure in so they can make the connections. That's going to be our need. The 100, I think we should be fine. So we have to, and it's so boring because it's just hidden away in the closet. You don't even know about all these routers and switchers. It's just boring. But that has to be, it's like a foundation of a house. It just has to be there. So we just have to change the way we think, that's all. It's not just important, it's just critical to what we do as educators.
Oh, of course, yeah. Getting more so all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions for Gary? Okay, thank you, Gary.
Okay,
thank you for your report. Okay, Marilyn Anna and Scotts Mills and homeless program.
I just want to check the battery. It's not battery here. He's about half.
Okay. Just chime in if you have any questions or anything, or...
Yeah, just make sure and tell Marilyn to use the microphone. She talks so soft.
Okay. Did you hear that, Marilyn?
We have two members of our robotics team. They built a robot, so pass out your packets to you tonight. So they're going to talk to you about it, a little bit about the challenge they have to get it set up, and then they will make it work. You probably have to read the papers.
Okay, it's coming up.
It's not four-wheel drive.
All right.
This is Ellie, and Gage, and Brian.
Our challenge was to make a robot out of Legos that could pass out papers.
Just
Our
next turn.
report was figuring out how to hold the papers. And we tried not to make it interactive so you guys wouldn't have to work too hard.
Is it coming across here? Okay.
We were trying, it was difficult because we had to get the angle of the table. So we had to come in beforehand and measure the table.
So can you steer it, or does it just go in one angle?
How many on your team? Just you guys, or are there more?
Just us. There's more in the whole Linear Robotics team, but there's just us at this
On this project.
Just what the...
Try not to laugh if we fail.
Whoa, that thing's fast.
I guess so, try.
Do it again.
Okay, so the hardest part is trying to balance.
This is not too, we're gonna do it.
How you doing?
Let me know when that's up. Okay. My icons are up.
You should be trying to
Flash it over and get this, so that you didn't get to see this.
Got a left turn in it.
And you can pass it off real fast.
I got a pretty good look at it. That's
pretty
good.
cool.
Okay, here we go. It's fast.
Fun doing it?
Yeah, we have fun trying.
Very cool.
Nice job. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
The hardest part was the angle.
Sure, that makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, that's...
Should have started down there.
I'm impressed,
Do
you
you
guys.
have any more questions?
Should have started from down there because it had the turn to it.
So you have any questions?
No, it looks like a good learning
I'm
experience.
impressed, very good.
Did you go to a competition on this as well?
Yes. The very first year I did it, we got to, ninth place. And ever since then, we haven't been doing very good, but I think we're having fun, and that's the whole point of it.
Good. Where's the competition at?
They're all over the place. Most of them start in Salem, and then we go to Portland, places like that.
Great.
Nice job.
Good job. Very cool. Icons are.
Okay, and Brian has put together a video, a documentary of our tag program.
Oh, good.
Brian is one
Oh,
of our
very cool.
tag students. And this was his project. Karen is the supervisor, and so he's going to show that.
Would it help if I came up with
I don't know.
Yes, that's fine.
Probably would.
There's actually a set for back there and up here, so either or both.
Is this better? You're not going to have it.
Oh, I'll straighten them out there in a minute.
He texted me.
some things that are unique about their grade and level. Of learning. Because they have very high achievement scores on both. Or other classroom tests that are given. We collect information from parents and teachers, and then a team of people get
Together to look at all that information to decide if there's enough evidence to go forward with the CAD referral or if we need more testing.
Hi, Herb. Sorry about that. Don't know why we lost you. You're back now.
Oh, hello, thank you, yes.
Got to adjust the camera a little bit.
Good thing Gary Marshall was there.
Once the determination is made that a student is eligible for CAD, then there are several options at our school to help students. One of them is an enrichment opportunity.
Hello, from Platinum School Tech Program. I'm Brian Stone, and also this film's director and cameraman. Now we will interview Mr. Ennis about how people came to the tech program.
Students at Scottsville School are referred for CAD services if their parents or their teachers notice some things that are unique about their rate and level of learning. Sometimes it's because they have very high achievement scores on OAKS or other classroom tests that are given. We collect information from parents and teachers, and then a team of people get together to look at all that information to decide if there's enough evidence to go forward with the CAD referral or if we need more testing. Once a determination is made that a student is eligible for CAD, then there are several options at our school to help students. One of them is an enrichment opportunity working with Mrs. Almquist 1 day a week with special projects that the students have identified. Each student has identified something different that interests them and intrigues them, and then with Mrs. Almquist's supervision and guidance, they're able to complete that project.
Now we're in the music room interviewing Mrs. Almquist about tag.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Almquist, and it's my privilege to work with these talented and gifted students. They get to choose a project, what they would like to do, and last year, Brian was interested in writing a computer program for a game. And so here, you can see this is all his hard work to show the storyboard of how this game would work.
Last method Kiwi is going to use ribbon sticks to dance and play.
Yeah, another of you that's concerning for hello, my name is Sue. Hello, my name is Samantha. What I like about tag is I got to try how percussion instruments go with what you speak, and I learned how to play the recorder better. The thing I liked about tag class is that you really get to be free in the music room and you get to see how all of the instruments make noise.
Now this is going you set a poll about our roles and journeys.
My name is Alexis and I'm tag and studying German. I wanted to learn German because my ancestors were from Switzerland and I'm really interested in the language and culture. So for this video, I'm going to be reciting a poem called Hide and Roselein by Goethe. Without ein Knapp, ein Roselein stehen, Roselein ausgehen. War von you und Morgenschön, lief schnell nah zu sehen. So I'm going to Google Translate to help learn how to pronounce language because it's a lesson in English. So all you do is just type in something, so that's going to be a good day. I can hear how it's pronounced. So then I know that I'm pronouncing it right, and that is really helpful for me.
Now we're going to interview Matthew while he's playing a musical piece.
I like tag so much because when I first started, I wanted to learn piano, and since I got to use tag, I was able to kind of have enjoyed making this video. It was an awesome experience for me. And I hope you learn something about the tag Pokemon at Scott Mills. Bye.
Do you have any questions for Brian about his film?
You did a great job.
Yeah, good job, Brian. Pretty impressive. Good work.
Thanks, Brian. So, the things that are on the front page, I have put a little bit about a robot, about tag enrichment, but I don't really think we need to go over that because you already seen it and heard it. I did put the current enrollment at our school and what our grade configurations are right now. Our 8th graders would remind you that they're already graduated. They're not really 8th graders anymore. A few of them came back to school today for field day, and when I said, hi, 8th graders, they said, we're not 8th graders, we're freshmen. And I said, freshmen aren't allowed to come on campus during the school day. They decided they were graduated 8th graders. So, and then there's our projected numbers for next year. As of today, we received our 15th registration for the all-day kinder program, so we have our target of 15. And so we will go forward with the configuration that's set up on that you see on the right side. We did cut our first grade, or excuse me, our second grade. This year we have a half-time second grade teacher, so that in the morning the first grade is taught by Mrs. Garrett, just the first graders, and the second graders are taught by Mrs. Lawton, just the second graders, so that they can get straight grade reading and math. But we had to cut that position for next year, and so Mrs. Garrett will have the first and second graders all day long together next year. However, we increased the part of our math specialist that's paid by general fund so that she could still go in and teach second grade math, so we would still get straight grade math in all grades. So we've increased the general fund part because that's core math. We can't use our title funds to pay for core math. So that had to come out of the general fund. And Mrs. Voss, you saw on your consent agenda tonight, Mrs. Voss resigned to accept a full-time position in Mount Angel, where she taught before, and we'll miss her. She's done a really great job of getting that program up off the ground. But she's excited to be going back to where she taught before. And Mrs. Lawton, who was the person that we had cut from the second grade morning position, will be really great as a math teacher, so we've transferred her into that position. So she'll be staying with us next year. Any questions about any of that?
We have a note here about 8 more potential transfer students across all grade levels. Can you expound on that?
Those are parents who've contacted us. Some of them, I think 4 of them are parents of kindergartners who are considering enrolling in kindergarten, and they have older siblings. So
Good.
those are, they're not listed out there in the move-ins or transfers. That would be in addition to what's already listed
So
there.
kindergarten's attracting additional students.
Yes, it has.
Through the family.
Good.
And then at the bottom, I just talked about the goal, because the growth goals are what the state is using now to rate schools, how our kids are growing, not just on the final scores, how those compare across the state, but how they're doing compared to themselves from year to year. So our site council set growth goals this year for us, and our teachers all agreed to set individual student growth, or as individual teachers all agreed to set student growth goals themselves for their professional goals this year. And I'm in the process right now of going through their final evaluations with them, but that's been a pretty successful process. They've all seemed to be pretty exciting growth. It's a new way for them to focus their goals, but they were very, very much in favor of it and supportive of it. And we have 5 probationary teachers. They all agreed to pilot the new educator evaluation system. I think that was on your consent agenda also tonight, approval of that. So we've been piloting that with our probationary teachers this year, and that's also been a very positive thing. I personally have also been piloting the administrative portion of that, so I wrote both goals myself this year. And then if you turn to the back, you'll see our reading and math growth goals. This is going to take a little bit of explaining, but growth, it's a different way of looking at data and setting goals, and so it takes a little bit of explaining how it works. So what you see here across the grade levels, first you'll see the growth goals, how many points, and that's RIT points, because RIT points are what what kids get when they take OATS tests. They get a score, and it's a RIT score. So then if you look over to the right half of that graph, the reading cut scores and the math cut scores, those are the scores that are identified by the state that students need to meet or exceed benchmark. So then if you look at third grade reading, the meet benchmark is 211 and fourth grade reading is 216. That's a difference of 5 points. So our site council decided we wanted our students to grow. That would be considered a year's growth. That 5 points would be considered a year's growth based on what's set by the state. We wanted our kids to make a year's growth plus 1. So you'll see that we set a goal of plus 6 points. If you look back over under the growth goal for fourth grade reading, you see the plus 6 there. So each of those goals that has a plus by it is a year's difference, a year's growth as measured by the state on the cut scores. If you look over at the cut scores, you'll be able to see the difference between, say, fourth grade and fifth grade is 5 points. So we set a goal of 6 points growth for that group. 1 year's growth plus 1 point. Question about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to follow you.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to follow.
Are you talking about individual classroom, or are you talking about a group of students?
No, we are talking about, we looked at what's called the scale score of the entire, so it's the average score for the whole grade. So we looked at last year's average score for the whole grade.
Say fourth grade this year to fourth grade next year.
Same group of kids, no, when they were
so it's
in
fourth
third
to
grade.
fifth,
It's
so same
from
kids.
fourth grade last year to fifth grade this year.
Okay, good.
So it's listed there as fifth grade.
It's actually tracking the same students.
Kids. With a few move-ins, a few move-outs, but for the most part, it's the same kids. So yeah, we're looking at the very same kids.
So it's
what
apples
they did
to
last
apples.
year to what they did this year, and we took what the state says is 1 year's worth of growth, and we added 1 RIT point to that. Okay, is that understandable now? That's what's listed up on top by the growth goals. Then if you look in the middle graph, our actual performance in reading and math, you'll see what the students did when it shows fourth grade reading in 11-12, that's when they were third graders. What they did in 12-13 as fourth graders. They made 6 points of growth, so we met our goal, but that's really a year's worth of growth plus 1. Okay? And then if you look at fifth grade reading, they went up 4 points. A year's worth of growth is, what did we set our goal there? As 6 points. A year's worth of growth is 5 points. So we were 2 points below our goal and 1 point below a year's growth. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you a minute to look. I'm not going to point all those out. You can look at all of those. I've highlighted the ones where we met our goal, and then you can see by how many points. We're especially happy with our 8th grade math. 6 points of growth when the goal was 3 points means that they made a year's worth of growth plus 4 points. So that's probably 2 years worth of growth. Average score for the whole class. And you can see that our best growth was in math in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And you know, we talked at Site Council about what that might be. We think it's probably largely due to the fact that we've got a curriculum, a very good curriculum in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. That curriculum's been taught now, I believe this is either our 4th or 5th year, so the teachers are getting very familiar with it. We also have had straight grade math in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for the last 3 years. We just implemented straight grade math in 3, 4, 5 this year, so they've just had that for 1 year in 3, 4, 5. We've had it now for 3 years in 6, 7, 8. So I think that's part of that growth there in math for our middle school is just the cumulative effect of doing it right for the last 3 years.
Do you think you have data that can show that?
I don't know.
A lot of our schools aren't doing that, and it'd be great to have data to show that makes a difference.
I don't know if we can show that, but you know, that's the thing that's different about middle school math than the rest of the grades. So I don't know that that's why it is, but there's quite a bit of growth there that's different from the other grades. So then we decided to look at it another way as well. So if you look at the bottom chart there, you have the average RIT score for our school, for the district, and for the state, and underneath of it you have the percent of students who met benchmark. So this is an interesting comparison. If you look at the third grade reading scores, The average score at Scotts Mills was 216. The average score across the state was 215. And yet 68% of students across the state met benchmark and only 58% of students at Scotts Mills met benchmark. So what that says to me is that we have a lot of third graders who are very low and a lot of third graders who are very high. So our average is higher than the state average, but only 58% of our kids were high enough to meet benchmark. 42% of our students were high enough to meet benchmark. No, I guess that's 58% were high enough to meet benchmark. So 10% fewer than across the state. So, you know, it gives a more complete picture of looking at student performance when you look at both of those measures. Any questions about that?
Well, help me understand, like in fifth grade, for example, is this just a reflection of that particular fifth grade class, or is it something going on in the progression of education?
We are all asking that same question, and we're looking. We hear that that's more typical across the state in fifth grade, but we're not willing to say that's what's going on there. We want to look and find out what's really happening with that group of kids, that it's lower than every other group. So I can't answer that question, Owen, because I don't know. Okay. But we are investigating it. It was the thing that stood out for us when we looked at this data. Why is that happening, and what can we do to support those students next year in sixth grade? Any more questions about that? Okay. Our writing results, we decided to do 2 assessments. There's one that's done district-wide, and we felt like we just really wanted to collect 2 samples, because sometimes kids have a bad experience writing, and it might not be their best work, but so we wanted to have 2 opportunities for them to do the writing sample, and so we did it that way. And so 57% of our students met benchmark on their best of the 2 samples that we took, which is higher. I don't remember our number from last year, but that is higher than our number from last year. Okay. And then on the next page is just a little bit about our school climate team. We put together the school climate team 3 years ago when we had a big change in our school population, and it's been a very positive thing. We have students that we honor. We recognize all the students who have good citizenship, but 4 of them get special recognition because we have a drawing every week to recognize those 4. And then the next week we draw 4 more, and then once a month we invite all those students and their parents to Muffins with Mom and Dad, and they each get a certificate, and we celebrate their good citizenship. And then at the end of the school year, we just did this last week, all of the students who've had their name in the drawing all year long. It's hard to have your name in the drawing every week all year long, because that means you have to have not done anything really bad, which is hard. We had 62 kids who made it. Of our 129, 62 of them got their name in the drawing.
That's great.
And so then we drew 4 winners, and those 4 winners, they each got a $25 gift card, courtesy of our parent club, and a stuffed Jaguar. It's kind of a big deal.
Cool.
Any questions about Scotts Mills? Okay.
Sounds good.
What's next on there then is the homeless report. This year, the Department of Ed is changing the way they collect. They used to call it a homeless count, and every school district sent in essentially our raw numbers of all the students that we served during the year who were homeless. That didn't mean that they stayed with us all year long. It meant they might have come, stayed a little while and left, but we would count them if they were in attendance at any time during the school year. And then that's what was reported by the state when they would publish the homeless count every fall. It showed across the state the number of students that every school district served, although the same student might be counted multiple times in different districts. This year they want to put out a disaggregated count that just shows the total numbers of students across the state who are homeless, not how many were in each district at any certain time. So we had to change the way we did the count to identify students. Before it was just a number, you just give them a number. Now we have to identify the students with their SSID so that when the numbers all come into the state, they can run them through their system, and then one district is counts that student, and the rest of us don't. And I believe it's how they determine
which district is the length of time spent. So whichever district they spent the longest amount of time in is who counts them. But that's all done at the state level. So what they've told us is that they're not going to put out a public count this year. They're not going to publish this, not going to release it to the public because it's so different than the way they counted last year. They're concerned about, it is apples to oranges, that it's going to really confuse people, so they're not going to put out a public count this year. What you have here is our raw number. We served 99 students at some point this year in Silver Falls School District. So we turned in a collection that had 99 student IDs on it. And then the state at some point will come back and tell us how many of those we're actually going to count. But I gave you the same numbers we've been counting the other year so you could compare it from year to year. You can see that our count's going down for the first time in, is that 7 years? It's gone down, that's a good thing. I think we probably would all say that we've seen lots of different signs that the recession is ending, but I think this is one of those signs that we're moving out of the recession because we see fewer kids living in homeless situations this year. Any questions about that?
Questions for Marilyn? Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Marilyn. And company. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, kids, for the robot lesson, the cool video. Okay, moving along. Linda Brown, Special Ed.
I've given you a couple of documents. Let's look at the... Oh.
Mike, I can't hear Linda at all.
Okay, she's coming to the center. Thanks.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little closer, maybe, Linda.
Okay. So let's refer to the green sheet first. This is kind of my version of a special ed department report card. If you look on the front that says data over time, and I've given you data for the last few years. So you can see the state percentage of special ed kids, Silver Falls special ed percentage, the census count, our total served in the year, special funding, and then the total student count in the district. And so if you look at the 12-13 school year, you'll see that our census count in December 1 was 492 kids. So that means on December 1, that's how many kids we had active within the district, was 492. If you go to the next column over, and there's the number 670 with the asterisk. So I just pulled this off the system just a little bit ago. We have currently 545 kids in special ed today attending our school. We have 82 kids at some point was receiving special education services in our district. Some of those kids are here, get services, and then they move to another district or they're found not eligible, but 82 kids that we served sometime this year that aren't with us now. We have 31 kids that we conducted a special education evaluation and weren't found eligible, but that's a lot of staff time for that. And we currently have 12 special education evaluations in the hopper right now that we'll need to complete by sometime in September. And another data I didn't put on here is this year we've conducted 120 initial special education evaluations. So when I look at the 670, that explains why we're so tired. That's a lot of students that we're serving, lots of IEP meetings that we're having. It's also particularly concerning when you look at our special ed fund count. That's that weighted amount. We get funding for 393.09 kids based on our state school fund grant. So just kind of an FYI. Also wanted to reflect what other districts in our area, what percentage of special ed. So we're kind of right there in the mix. We're at about 13.8. I'd love for that to be a little bit lower. But we have a lot of students with lots of needs. And then if you look at the bottom, we often hear, you know, our special ed kids are our foster care kids or our transfer kids or our homeless or ELL. So if you look on the right side, for the 11-12 school year, we have 13 kids in foster care. We have 22 kids on IEPs. And then you look at the poverty rate, 304 special ed kids were in poverty compared to 1,353. So just kind of a snapshot that not every foster care kid or ELL kid ends up in special education. So any questions about that side? Then you look on the other side, this information provides you a little bit of a snapshot of how many kids are actually in our basic skills SLP classroom. So of our special ed kids right now, we have 17.5% of those students in some type of restrictive program, which is about 83 kids. And that number has steadily gone up over the years as we find our students being more complex and just needing a lot more help. And then at the bottom, it shows each area of special education disability that we support. It's kind of interesting seeing the numbers change. We're seeing less kids in the area of learning disability, but a lot more kids in the area of other health impaired. Oftentimes, other health impaired are students with ADHD. So we're seeing a big increase in that area. So it's just good to kind of see the snapshot of the students we're serving.
What are your thoughts on why that's changing?
Truly, our students coming in the door are just more needy. When you look at the little ones down at Eugene Field coming in the door, they've just had a lot of challenges in life, a lot of family situations. Economics could be a part of that. We're seeing more and more drug-affected students coming through. It's just a
lot of family issues, huh?
Yeah, a lot of family issues. Great kids, but a lot of them have had too many life journeys and difficult things to overcome right now. So we're happy to serve them. And if you look at the white packet, I know one of the things that you're striving for all of our students and staff is to provide a safe, supportive educational environment. When I look at a lot of the tragic events that have happened in schools and school shootings, you most often see that it's actually the students that we're serving are some of the students that poses the biggest risk. So within our school district, we've got a pretty comprehensive support system. We do have a structured learning program serving kids from kindergarten all the way through high school. And I gave you a brief description about that. And I noticed I have a few typos on here. We'll pull this together late this afternoon. But we do have a structured learning program. Those kids in the younger ages tend to be ADHD. They need a lot of help with structure and support. When they get into high school, it's more like students with emotional disabilities, emotional problems. We also need to keep in mind that any student that lives in the context of Silver Falls School District, it's our responsibility to provide an education to them. So that's a big profile of lots of different kids. So we have our structured learning program. We have an awesome behavior support team. This is my dream team number 2. We have Amy Troyer. It's neat when you look at the background. Amy Troyer is a special education teacher, has had lots of experience with students in basic skills and structured learning programs. John Harrington's the new guy on the block. He has private counselor experience and child development specialist. And we have Jennifer Bigham, she's a school psychologist. Now Debbie Scott's also joining us as a school counselor. So those 4 folks with those different, just different points of view, different life experiences coming together to support our kids is just really great. And then we have our family support advocate, which is Rodney Dean. He's the guy that when we need to connect children to mental health services, he's our great support in that area. And then we also have our autism specialist, Lori Baker, then Sue Gerhardt's our autism assistant, but she's also a speech therapy assistant too, so she has both of those credentials. And then some of the support systems we do functional behavior analysis, we have behavior plans, we do threat level 1s, threat level 2s, and then for the students that we've had that in structured learning program, we put support in there and they're still struggling and we're like, what can we do with these students? We get outside evaluations done. Most often those we have mental health type of diagnosis that we'll find that way. This year we've had 6 of those. And it's really for the students, the very top of the pyramid, the most difficult ones to support, but they're also the students that I want to know what can we do to support these kids to keep everybody safe. And then attached to this is just our Threat 1 system that we used. This is something that's developed by ESD. So when we do have students that we're terribly concerned about their behaviors, how they're interacting in the class, how they're interacting with other students. A threat level 1 is what we do.
When you talk about threat, is that to teachers, to other students, to themselves?
Could be both ways. It's mostly this is students toward teachers, toward other kids. For example, if we have a kid maybe bringing a knife to school, or a student that's saying, hey, I'm going to shoot you or hurt you or something. That's when we pull this out, and we have a very thoughtful process about asking those questions and really determining, is this student really a threat or not? So you'll see all the questions that we ask. It's a pretty comprehensive set of questions. We do have the same type of document. It's kind of the softer, kinder document. When you look over this, oftentimes it's for older kids, but if you have like a little kindergarten, first grader, it just needs to be different type of questions, so it's a softer, kinder. After we complete the threat level 1, if the team still feels there's additional information, additional concerns that we need to address, we take it to a level 2 when we go to ESD, and we actually will bring a mental health specialist to the table as well as law enforcement. So we've had several meetings that way where we just need more information. And oftentimes when we go to level 2, it's connecting the students into mental health services. Oftentimes our Marion County and Silverton Police Department are very aware of these families and these individuals. So it's really a way for us to say, there's so much more than education going on. We need to connect to other members of our community to really understand kids. But we have wonderful students, great kids, but we also have students that have a very unique life journey, and sometimes that journey causes them to act in an unsafe way. And as a school, we're just trying to figure out how can we support them, how can we help them access their education. But we truly are here to support all the students in the Silver Falls, no matter what they've done or where they've been. So just a little snapshot about our safety, how we try to support our kids. So any questions?
If we had teachers have been threatened or felt that the police are at some type of risk?
Yeah, we've had that. And one of the things I think, as I've looked through some of our policies, and I know it's not administrator's idea to talk about policy yet, but I think it would be great if we could take a look at our policies and see if a student is threatening a teacher or sexual harassment for a teacher, that's a policy is reflected both ways. A lot of times policies will just be teachers against student, but with the complex students that we're working with now, it's just good that we have everybody, and it's very thoughtful about behaviors of staff and kids.
It appears this is escalating, so maybe it's something we should work on next year, some new policies.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, because our teachers, you know, they love working with our difficult kids, but when our students are saying things that make us feel uncomfortable, it's just not, it's not okay.
Yeah, very
We need
much
to
so.
address that. So, it's all about my
Okay.
little special ed kids and their behaviors.
More questions for Linda? Great, thank you, Linda. Very
Yeah, I
good
appreciate the
report.
work you do.
Yeah.
Don't envy you.
Don't know how you and your team do it, but thank you. Okay, moving on, board reports. Does anybody have anything? Very quickly, and I won't take much time, I did get to a couple schools the last few weeks. I was able to stop in at Prattam once, and they weren't in the classroom when I stopped in. All the kids were in the gym practicing for their spring program. So I got to sit and listen to them practice for about a half an hour, and very fun, doing some really fun things, lots of Disney songs they were singing and a whole variety of different stuff. And you know, hearing the kids recite some of their stuff, they were doing a really good job. I also got to go to Evergreen, and I was there, the junior or the upper room kids, the 6th, 7th, and 8th were at the track meet, the district track meet for that group. So I only saw the kindergartners and some, you know, up through 5th grade, but it's always fun to watch Mrs. Potter and Mrs. Parsons teach. They're just masters, and they do a good job with the kids. And they were kind of wrapping up some of their curriculum. It was getting towards the end of the year. And the kindergarten, again, just it's amazing what she does in there. She was the kids had done reports, they had done insect reports, they had stories they had written. A couple of them read some of their stories to me, and they were showing me their butterflies and all sorts of stuff. I kind of miss that age sometimes. It was very fun. So good things at Evergreen. And also I spent a little time at the high school, and it was getting towards the end of the year. I meant to get there a lot earlier in the year, but it didn't happen. But one of the things that really struck me at the high school this year was the amount of teachers that were helping kids finish up what they needed to finish up, either to graduate or just to finish up what they needed to for the year before finals came. It was really awesome. Her name slips me now. Melissa Boyd. I went into her classroom and she had a group of kids who they were normally a writing lab that she was working with, but some of them had finished, some of them were still working on some writing that she was helping them on, but she also had all their all their other classes that they were trying to finish up work on. And so she was, she said, I'm always a mom. So she was really, helping the kids work through the stuff they needed to finish up. Mr. Pyros was working with some writing lab kids that when I was in there on the computer, they were finishing some stuff up. But he also showed me some testing that he was coming up with to address the standards for the Common Core stuff that are coming. And he was really basing his test on the standards that the kids are going to need to know in some of the English classes that he worked with. And he was talking about cross-curricular stuff he was working on with some of the history teachers that, they would do a report that would help in their writing, but also in their history. And so just some kind of cross-curricular stuff they were working on that sounded pretty neat and pretty, beneficial for kids. Really neat art stuff in Carolyn Drake's room. I didn't listen to the concert choir because they were having a concert that night, and I was going to go to that and didn't want to get too much of a preview, but the concert they did was really good. Graduation was fun with the high school, and I was at Pratham's graduation also. I just want to kind of end by saying, it's always a treat to go visit the schools, and we have awesome schools in this district and awesome teachers, awesome people working who the kids are the most important thing to them, and they do what's best for kids. And we can be really lucky and feel really blessed for the people we have in the schools we have in this district and the people we have working in them. And we have great kids too. So good things, very good things. That's my spiel. Correspondence. Anything, Andy? We did get a packet in the mail of some persuasive writings that some of the sophomore class and Nancy Miller's class for the high school had done. Yep. So
it was very good.
Yeah.
A couple of them, it really made me think. I need to respond back to Mrs. Miller on a couple of them.
Yeah, I need to read more of those too, but they were really good. So, okay, I'd like to open it up for a second audience with visitors, limited discussion and action items, and also approval of the 2013-14 budget. Would anybody else like to address the board? Gene. Please sign in, Gene, just so we have a record of it.
What's Gene's last name?
Gene Pfeiffer.
Okay, so I think it was on the item, but I was too late to listen to it. So regarding the bond, I want to focus on what we should be doing right now, and I'm going to read from something sent to me from the newspaper, which was, the question was, what is next? But I want to focus on the things that are immediate right now that I think that the board needs to take care of rather than relying on a facilities committee, and that's our maintenance problems. To make sure I wasn't speaking incorrectly today, I stopped by Eugene Field School after church on Sunday and looked at the things that had been mentioned in my report in March about things that were needing to be done, and they're still not done. I mean, we have downspouts that are disconnected, things that don't drain, the roof drains are plugged, the leaves are all in the vents on the south side of the building, all kinds of things that are really easy to do, but they're not being done. And here we've just spent, in my estimation, $100,000 on outside consultants. We can be saving that money instead of keeping doing this process. Let's use some of that money and take care of things that are immediate and take care of them. These are things that I'm just going to say that I think that the board should consider. And I've had plenty of feedback from the public, I'll tell you. I had so much input, I couldn't believe how much people knew themselves. And I think the one thing that needs to be emphasized is we have a very educated public in Silverton. A lot of retired professional people, a lot of teachers that were upset as well as anybody. So anyway, the current maintenance administration, I think you should consider its removal and completely remove it. I think that you should hire a party that is knowledgeable, able to do the business by itself with a secretary. You can save lots of money. I think there should be an immediate maintenance audit on all the school facilities by an experienced person, not by an architect, by somebody who understands maintenance problems. There's a need to preserve our assets. So I'll just mention the old high school and Eugene Field School. Old high school, we should inspect for deteriorating conditions from lack of heat and ventilation. We should restore minimal heat. We should put in an active fire extinguishing system. Right now it's such that the fire department gets an alarm, they have to come and plug up to the building. And we could lose the building in that time frame. We should put back fire extinguishers. We should have someone do a daily walk for inspection through the facilities. It's sitting there empty. Somebody should walk through it and see if there's something going on.
I guess, I have to ask, Gene, why do you think that building's an asset to the community? It's old, it has been falling apart. We don't need the space in the district. It's actually a anchor on our budget right now because we have to put money into it to keep it up and make it look decent. Honestly, the district would be better off from a day-to-day perspective if that building was gone.
Not at all. If you had an asset yourself and you could anticipate that you're going to be using it in the future, you would be wanting to preserve it. You wouldn't want the roof to leak. Or
when do you think we might use this building? We don't need the space.
Well, I didn't want to go into this aspect, but I guess we shall. The building is worth, by the architect's own admission, $41 million to replace it. Those parts not counting the gym. You have a document in the record. It isn't 26 million, it's 41 million. And so that's what its basic functional value is, less what it takes to remediate it.
But if we don't have a use for that, I don't know what the value is, honestly. I haven't done that research. However, what I do know is that we don't have a need for that building, and we're spending maintenance dollars on that building that could be going into our classrooms. And we have no use for that building in the foreseeable future.
Somebody asked the other day which building could be sacrificed now if we have too many facilities. The one that we have that really could go is Mark Twain. Mark Twain is an asset up there. It'd be a good property to sell. If you look at it, it's got all kinds of problems too. It's got single strength windows, or not insulated. You're going to put $2.1 million into the bond, and plus there was nothing in there for seismic upgrades.
At least Mark Twain is safe to put kids in. Schlater is not safe to put kids in.
I didn't understand.
Schlater's not a safe building to put kids in anymore. Schlater's an unsafe building, Gene. It was deemed unsafe in 2006. I'm not going to argue with you, it's just a fact. And I agree with Wally also. So please move on, because we've been 5 minutes already, so give us your other points, please.
I was. So we should install a basic economical alarm system so that we can tell if there's an intrusion or smoke. You don't have an active system in the building. In Eugene Field School, there are some leaks that should be fixed right away. Leaks are being left there. The public is aware of it. They're saying, why don't we just fix the leak? And the gym is an obvious one. The downspouts should be connected, and we should try to fix the roof drains. It's obvious that the system was there before. All the cast iron is still there. If you go to the curb, you see the drains. You go out in the street, you can see the catch basins plugged. Nobody's maintaining it and opening it up so the system will work. There's, I believe, a sump pump in the basement. We should open it up and make it usable. And we've got a foundation vents that we should open. And Eugene Field School is not a safe building. You've been quoted in the newspaper saying it's safe. It's not safe. So you have a liability in this regard. You should be taken care of it. Eugene Field could be taken care of in 2 summers. So anyway, my message is that we should be taking care of some things currently. We shouldn't be waiting. We could debate more about the Schlater campus. Schlater is not needed right now. I agree with that part, but that doesn't mean we don't save that asset for when it is needed, and it is remediable.
Questions for Gene?
I just disagree with your last comment.
Pardon me?
I just disagree with your last comment, that we have to have absolutely no use for that structure for foreseeable future, and why would we spend money to maintain it?
Well, we don't have any need right now to spend 26 million or 41 million on it as well, and that was what the board had proposed.
With the closing of Eugene Field. That's important to note as well. That money was to build something more with the closing of Eugene Field. Because Eugene Field, if there's a serious earthquake, it's going down. We've had numerous people come and say that.
But Julie, Eugene Field could be fixed very readily, and it's not a complicated structure.
But you still have an old building that is not functional for 21st century education. I don't think you understand that, Gene. It's not functional for 21st century education. And I want to take issue with you also on the fact that our maintenance department isn't doing its job. If our maintenance department wasn't doing its job, Eugene Field will not have been there for 92 years. It's a 92-year-old building that is educated, that has been there. Kids have been in it for 92 years. If our maintenance department wasn't doing its job around this district, that building wouldn't have lasted that long. So.
Tim, I didn't blame the maintenance department. I blamed the maintenance administration. And the fact is, our superintendent of that school district, which was its own district before, the 1 through 12 was its own district for a time period. The building, if you look at your own photographs, it doesn't even have insulation in the attic. And you're going to say that you've been taking care of the building? I know it's just recently that you've been on the board of the last 15 years or whatever. You've been on longer. The thing is, it insulated all kinds of problems there, and we talk about what the bills are. How are we going to start becoming responsible? Are you going to rely on an administration that doesn't tell you the truth, or are you going to get the truth and start taking care of things? The facts are there, and people know these facts beyond Gene Pfeiffer. Gene Pfeiffer just picked up the ball when I saw that there was going to be this problem. Somebody asked me after church a couple of weeks ago if I'd been celebrating after the lecture, and I said I wouldn't call it that at all. I'd say it's more like I've been relieved that we now have something to start thinking about. Can we save these historic buildings in Silverton? Can we save money? Can we focus on education rather than focusing on new buildings all the time and wasting money on them? That's where people are so disappointed. They're so disappointed with the addition to the high school and to what you spent on it, and people know it, not just me. So don't focus on me. It's everybody, and you need to pay attention to them. That's the fact.
I disagree with that, Gene. I've had a lot of conversation. I think there are people out there, but I think you talk about the facts. I think that you threw enough things that were stated as fact that you caused a lot of confusion in the community. That's my own opinion of it. I can't say that for a fact per se, but I think there was a lot of confusion created, and that confusion was enough in and of itself to cause a lot of people not to support the bond measure. That's my opinion. I can't look at the bond, I can't take your statement that people are upset with the administration or upset with the leadership when I see, I mean, I think there are people out there, but generally speaking, the population, the voting population, when I see the votes for some of the longest standing board members, they're getting 98, 99% of the votes. Almost everybody voting for the exact same people who are making those decisions put the bond on. So that doesn't square with me to say that people are upset with the administration, people are upset with the board. True, they didn't maybe like or support ultimately the bond measure, but my thinking is that it probably had more to do with misinformation causing confusion. This whole concept of, in the law of a reasonable doubt. Well, some people need a higher quantum, I guess, of proof, and that quantum of proof goes way up when there's a bunch of misinformation spread, or things that are spread as fact, stated as fact, by people who have some, experience. But I can't agree with you that these are facts that you've said.
And you also
But there's one thing that we should focus on, which you're wrong on your statistics. Go visit the election again. These two fellows only received about 65 or 70% of those who voted in that election. They didn't receive 90%. Go look at it again. They received a fraction. They didn't receive the entire vote. There are a lot of people who did not vote for them. You just go back and look at it. Look at the total people that voted in the bond, for the bond, and then compare it to those who voted for these candidates. And you'll see that it is not 90%.
Well, Gene, that to me is not relevant. I don't place a lot of relevance on people who choose not to vote. I'm not going to take somebody's decision to not vote and say that that has some relevance or some merit. That to me is a shame that they didn't vote.
Oh, no, they did vote. I'm saying that those that voted, only about 65 or 75 or 70% of them voted for these two candidates. That's what I'm saying. And I didn't make it relevant, by the way.
I'm looking at it right here. This is Wally Learman received 2,891 votes as opposed to the write-in of 64. Those were the only votes cast in Marion County. That's not counting Clackamas County, but those are the only votes cast for that position.
Yeah, but that says there's a whole bunch of people that abstained from voting for them.
And that's what I said. I'm not going to count and take any relevance or any merit to somebody who abstains from voting.
Well, there's only one candidate, so they abstained. But
well,
anyway,
either way, we're still here.
I didn't come in here about the item.
Gene, one other comment you made that we should focus on education. The focus of this district has always been on educating kids. Has always been on educating kids. So I take issue with you on that too. So
when you're taking $100,000 and you're paying these conflict of interest consultants that come into our town, and you don't have enough money for, I received an email from a student in the school. He said, put this in one of your letters to tell them. He said, I've been watching what's going on. There's not even enough money in our math class to produce our math problems. So, and I have other information besides that. That's what people are watching. When you say that you can cut the school supplies in this next year's budget by 10%, and you're going to raise the guy who's in charge of maintenance, his rate up to $112,000 a year, and you don't think people are paying attention to that? It's in your sheets. Go look at it.
Thank you for your comments, Gene.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to address the board tonight? Okay, moving on, I'd like to close the budget hearing at this time. And we have a couple action items. First one, adopt the recommended adjustments to approved budget for fiscal year 2013-2014. These adjustments are ones that we had to make because the bond didn't pass. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Herb, you getting it?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Our second action item, approve resolution adopting the budget, levying taxes, and making appropriations for fiscal year 2013-2014. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Who was the second?
I got second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, budget's approved. And we're adjourned for this evening. Thank you for coming, everyone.